This past fall, the world hit a milestone. 7 billion people. Reaching the last billion took only a dozen years. But keep in mind that women who have a large number of children are at dramatically increased risk, as our own Dr. Richard Besser knows too well.
That's right. Tonight we've been talking about life and death at the time of delivery. But I'm sure a lot of people are wondering if there are solutions that could have been found 9 months earlier. I'm talking about family planning. Everywhere we traveled this year to report our story, we found women desperate for help and in search of solutions. So desperate that this woman in Kenya went behind her husband's back to get a long-term contraceptive injection just to keep from having another child. In Sierra Leone, a mother of 5 drank a village healer's potion, trying to make her 6th baby go away. There are an estimated 215 million women globally who want access to contraception and can't get it, leaving them to have baby after baby after baby and a higher risk of death. But in Mexico, we found a different story, a story of hope. In this Catholic country, where years ago fertility rates were sky high, there's been a dramatic change. Widespread contraception, smaller families, fewer women dying in childbirth. I traveled deep into rural Mexico and waited at this roadside stand
¿Qué es esto?
to meet a woman who is on the front lines of this female revolution.
Soy Richard Besser. Mucho gusto.
27-year-old Guadalupe Garcia Alvarez. She invited me to visit her Masawa Indian village. A young mother, determined to keep others from having a story like hers.
Yo siempre viví en ese círculo de violencia, de opresión.
Raised in poverty, too many siblings. San Juan Coamuco is a tiny village of roughly 5,000 people, many only reachable by dirt road. Guadalupe's mother had 6 children and only a first-grade education. Many of the women who live here get married as early as 13 and have 6 to 10 children.
In the Masawa family, who decides how many children there'll be?
La mayoría de las veces,
the majority of the time, if not always, the man is the one who decides how many children to have.
And education? Contraception? It's all up to the men, she says.
ellas son las compañeras.
Guadalupe defied those traditions, got her college degree.
Muerte materna.
Now she's dedicating her life to teaching women they have a voice. She holds workshops here, talking about topics that were once taboo, sex and pregnancy. And the message that the Mexican government has been advocating for years: smaller families live better. Mexico City, home to 22 million people. It's the largest, most dense city in the Western Hemisphere. Imagine this city if women had no access to family planning. Fortunately, they've had access for almost 40 years.
Éramos menos de 25 millones de mexicanos.
In the early 70s, Mexico was bursting at the seams.
The population would double every 20 years.
Every 20 years,
yeah.
Another Mexico.
Another Mexico, exactly.
Julio Frank, Mexico's former Minister of Health, recalls how the population boom threatened the country's future.
The country didn't have the schools to educate all those children, the hospitals to treat them. The environment would deteriorate.
So the Mexican government made family planning a national priority. They opened clinics, offered free access to birth control, launched a far-reaching television campaign,
Una vida mejor.
started sex education in elementary school,
que convivan niños y niñas,
and sent college students door-to-door with pamphlets.
The Mexican Constitution was amended to recognize, says every person has the right to freely decide the number and spacing of his or her children.
This is MexFam, the largest non-government provider of reproductive health services.
¿Cómo está?
Dr. Pablo Jesus let me shadow him for a day.
¿Y puede dar todos aquí?
Sí, todos.
¿Está bien?
¿Cómo se ha sentido?
He tells me that having large families is now almost a social stigma in many parts of the country. Back in the 70s, Mexican women had an average of 7.2 kids. Today, they average 2.2.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
I met Sylvia. Her mother had 5 children. Her grandmother, 10. And her great-grandmother, 18. She is the mother of 4.
18, 4. Muy diferente.
Having fewer children has made the difference for nearly every woman I spoke to at the clinic. According to Maricela Dura, director of MexFam, more than 3/4 of all Mexican women use some form of birth control. And yet, despite this remarkable progress, many women, she says, use it in secret, in a culture ruled by men.
How does birth control threaten machismo?
They feel that they are not enough men if they don't have a lot of children.
I watched that machismo in action when this couple came in to discuss contraception after the birth of their son. The doctor spoke only to him, leaving her almost completely out of the discussion.
When the couple is there, then the husband is always who make the decisions.
Men and women, but especially women, being empowered to lead the kind of fulfilling lives. That to me is the larger concept of reproductive health. And probably the single most important thing we can do there is education for girls.
A new kind of future, a new control of their lives. Guadalupe decided to have only 2 babies. Even the women in her remote village are starting to hear her message.
I think about having a family, but not at this moment. What I want to do is to finish my studies.
Simple decisions that may end up saving their lives.